It started with a sound that did not belong on that quiet street. Engines low and steady, a rumble that moved like weather across the tidy lawns and parked cars. Chrome flashed, leather creaked. It drew eyes the way thunder draws children from beds. Not because it frightened them, but because something big had arrived where nothing big usually ever did. Under an elm tree beside a splintered garden bench, a small figure stood with a cardboard sign. The sign read, "For sale," in hurried letters. A battered pink bicycle leaned against the tree. Its tassels were gone, one pedal hung loose, the paint scarred from years of use. The girl, Meera, held the sign with both hands as if it might blow away. Her shoes were too big, her hair had been braided this morning, and the braid had been left unfinished. "Please, sir," she said to each passing car and to the riders idling at the corner. "My mom hasn't eaten in 2 days." Among the riders was Ryder, called Wolf by those who'd seen him move through the city on 2 wheels. He wore Courier leathers layered with patches from years on the job, and his hands were big enough to hold a wrench or to cup a child's face. The brothers rode in 3 short, confident lines behind him. Tank, Viper, Mason. Names that sounded sharper than the men looked at that moment. Ryder had the veteran stillness. He watched Meera the way someone checks coincidence for the signs of truth. He killed his engine half a bike length away and walked over, boots soft on the pavement. The other men stayed a few steps back, engines humming like distant bees. Everything slowed. Meera looked at Ryder like she had looked at strangers all morning. Polite, rehearsed, careful not to make a scene. Her fingers were raw where they gripped the cardboard. Clara, her mother, sat on the bench, shoulders folded inward the way pride folds on itself. Her jacket was an old coat borrowed from a charity. She smiled when Ryder approached, but it was the sort of smile someone gives to stop others worrying. Ryder crouched. He did not ask for the usual details. He took one hand from his pocket, counted out notes with a steady motion, and pushed them into Meera's palm. He said without theatrics, "Keep the bike, kiddo." Meera's eyes brightened as if someone had opened a window inside her chest. The word kiddo landed and lasted there, simple and precise. Ryder stayed until Meera had tucked the money into a tattered purse, and the girl had fussed with the bike, testing its balance as if testing a promise. He could have walked away then. He did not. There was something about the look on Clara's face, not just hunger, but the particular quiet agony that comes from being cut loose by a system that treats livelihoods like spreadsheets. Ryder's jaw tightened. He had seen that look in other places, on factory gates, in the queue at the food bank, in the faces of people who'd given everything and been thanked with a letter. The street smelled faintly of frying oil and diesel. He thought of his own past losses, of nights he had fended off cold with the warmth of 3-wheeled cafes, and the kindness of strangers he'd never properly thanked. Those memories folded in on him like a map. "Where did she work?" he asked Clara softly. "Hensley Catering," Clara said. They let go half the canteen last month. They said redundancies. They said cost savings." Hensley Catering. The name landed like a dull stone. It was the sort of firm with big glass and polished floors, the kind that sent out glossy emails about values and community while firing staff by the dozen. Ryder said nothing. He stood, signaled his brothers, and mounted his bike. They rode off without sirens, without horns. They had the presence of a weather front moving to where it would change the light. If this story matters to you, share it. Kindness spreads. They tracked Hensley to an office block where the reception smelled of lemon and the carpet made a polite sound under their boots. They did not plan a spectacle. They did not threaten. That was part of the point. They wanted to be simple witnesses, human evidence carried from a bench under a tree to a desk polished for signatures. Ryder walked through the revolving door like any other courier making a delivery. Tank and Viper loitered in the lobby. Mason pretended to be on a phone. The men cleaned their faces with their hands, folded the rough edges of their presence into something ordinary. A receptionist checked IDs and made calls. On the 3rd floor, behind glass that bleached faces with corporate light, Mr. Hensley sat behind a desk where a gold pen usually rested on its little velvet cushion. The office was all smooth surfaces and precise plants. Hensley was a man used to arrangements. He had a mouth that practiced apologies and a watch that kept the time of meetings rather than the time of people. He looked up when Ryder put the pink bicycle's picture, a photo Meera had shown him on his phone, on the desk. Ryder placed the cardboard sign beside the pen. The cardboard was rough under his fingers. He did not raise his voice. He did not slam a fist. He let the sign sit on the desk, and then, slowly, he spoke so that the words would fit between the clink of the kettle in the kitchen and the hum of the air conditioning. "You see this?" Ryder said. He tapped the cardboard. The printing was still jagged from haste. "That is what your choices look like when you hold them up to the light." Hensley's mouth moved. He offered a standard defense about margins and inevitabilities, but Ryder had no need for argument. He told a short, steady story. Meera's plea under the elm, Clara on the bench, the way hunger sharpens pride into something like broken glass. He watched Hensley's face as if measuring how far a man could be pushed before he looked at himself and saw the cost. "You don't get to buy forgiveness," Ryder said, and his voice was plain. "But you do get a chance to do what's right." Short sentences, a pause. The office felt suddenly very small. Hensley stared at the cardboard for a long moment. He rubbed his temple and for the first time in months allowed his breath to sound unsettled. He was not a caricature of evil. He was a man who had, until then, believed that decisions made for shareholders were necessarily clean. The sign on his desk made chaos visible. The men in leather were not shouting. They did not brandish violence. They stood there like witnesses to a ledger that had never listed the weight of a child's hunger. Outside, someone in the lobby took a picture of the cardboard on the desk. A minute later, a short video of Ryder's stoicism and Meera's small bike began to spread. The city takes notice of pictures that marry contrast and conscience. A local cafe owner recognized the bench, called a friend at a charity, and the story moved with the slow certainty of a train. Hensley made a decision that did not absolve him. He changed tactics. He offered an immediate payment that would cover food and bills. He arranged for Clara and others dismissed in the same round to be rehired pending a fair review. He authorized anonymous donations to be routed through a local community fund so that families would not be embarrassed receiving help. He paid out standing medical bills that had been the clearest and cruelest consequences of the cuts. He asked later and awkwardly to meet Meera and Clara privately. It was not a miracle. It was consequence meeting conscience. The men in leather had not smashed windows or broken locks. Their currency was presence and the image of small suffering placed on corporate chrome. That image moved people who had means. It moved a company used to moving numbers and nudged them into moving food instead. Back under the elm, there were boxes delivered, groceries, tins, milk, and a cake that was a small extravagance. A neighbor had dropped off a blanket. The police had asked questions and listened. Hensley's office sent a check and a phone call from someone who said they worked in HR and was sorry. Clara would be called back for a meeting. For the first night in too long, there was a hot meal on the table. Ryder did not stay for speeches. He sat on the bench with Meera and Clara and accepted a sandwich pressed into his palm by a woman from the church who had come with the groceries. He ate standing up, the way couriers eat between runs. The engines cooled in the street, soft exhalations of metal settling into the earth. The bike's chrome took on the rose of the setting sun. They spoke in small things. Meera told a rote joke about a bicycle that wanted to be a motorbike. Clara laughed and then for a moment looked away. She had a dignity that even good fortune could not smooth entirely. In her eyes was the memory of standing tall in spite of trouble. Ryder watched her and felt a tenderness that was less about charity and more about recognition. She had been pushed, and now someone was asking to put right what had been put wrong. When it was time to go, Meera folded the cardboard carefully. Ryder watched the rough creases, the way she smoothed them down like a person smoothing care into a plan. He told her, almost as an afterthought, and then as one of the few things he would ask, "Just promise you'll never give up." Meera promised with a solemn nod. Her promise was small and enormous all at once. She tucked the folded sign into her bag, where it would be kept like a talisman, a reminder that someone had seen her that day. The riders mounted. Tank, Viper, Mason revved their bikes with an easy noise, not triumphant, not smug. They had not set out to be saviors. They had set out to follow a truth. Ryder started his engine and glanced back once at the bench, at the pink bicycle glinting in the dusk. The summer light wrapped the chrome in quiet gold. In the days after, there were practical changes. A review of the redundancies at Hensley Catering, a small program to support staff transitions, and a community fund that fed families who had been missed. People talked about the oddness of compassion arriving on a throat of exhaust and leather. They talked more importantly about how easy it is to look past the cardboard signs and how necessary it is sometimes for someone to carry them to the right desk. Ryder kept writing. He made deliveries and collected parcels. He